Next.UI 2.0 seems like a great component library for your React applications. So let's check this React UI library out. But first of all, it's important to note that Next.UI 2.0 is built on top of Tailwind CSS instead of style components. So basically Next 2.0 does not use CSS in JS, unlike Next 1.0, which caused a massive performance issue while working with server components in React or with the Next.js 13.4 app directory. So Next.UI 2.0 solves all those performance issues. If I go to the docs here, let's explore the documentation a bit. So another important thing you should know is, as I mentioned, Next.UI 2.0 is built on top of Tailwind CSS. But you might wonder how Next.UI is different from Tailwind CSS. Well, if we scroll down here, they answer that question as well. They say that Tailwind CSS just provides atomic CSS classes, which helps you style your components, but Next.UI helps you to do more additional things on top of that, like handling accessibility, component composition, keyboard navigation, styling overrides, and more. So basically you can see a lot of things over here in customization that Next.UI allows us to do that Tailwind CSS in general doesn't. So basically Next.UI has built-in hooks which work with your React application. They provide dark mode, light mode themes. They also allow you to override styles, add custom variants, which we'll explore soon, don't worry about that. And then you might also wonder how Next.UI is different from Tailwind CSS component libraries like Tailwind UI and all that. Well, that's because Next.UI performs as React specific components. So all these components that you see over here, they are very well suited for React specifically. And they also provide logic, props, composition, or accessibility features, some of which we will explore soon. So basically Next.UI is built in a way where it is very compatible with how React works. And to dive into that a little bit, let's say I go to the theme part. So Next.js allows us to work with the theme of our applications pretty easily. So basically by theme, it means adding a predefined set of colors, layout attributes, and other UI elements that you can consistently apply across your application. So if you have certain specific colors, font sizes, layouts that you want to use, then by Next.UI's theming, you can make sure that all those attributes are consistent throughout your application. Like you don't have to specify the font size every time you enter the font size of a particular tag, or you don't have to specify the exact color code every time you need to add the color. You can use Next.UI's theming capability, which is built by customizing a Tailwind CSS plugin itself. So it all goes hand in hand with Tailwind CSS. So as you can see over here, first you have to add the Next.UI over here in the plugins to tell your application that you want to use Next.UI's theming capability. And then after that, if you go down here, once you've added that, you can use the simple keywords like light or dark to make sure that your component follows a light theme or a dark theme and so on. As you can see over here, it makes things so simple to ensure if your component needs to be dark or light themed. Now, apart from this, there's also layout. The layout obviously ensures a uniform aesthetic across all components without needing to override the default Tailwind CSS configuration. So you can add your own common layout, such as the spacing units, font sizes, line heights, which will follow a consistent pattern across your entire application, and it won't override the default layout provided by Tailwind CSS. You can specify your own font sizes, spacing units that your Next.UI components need to use by utilizing it like this, by placing it within the Next.UI over here. Similarly, the same goes for colors, customizing themes, creating themes. You can create your own personal themes, just background, foreground. You can create all these customizations for the specific Next.UI components, and then you can override styles as well, as discussed before, which means the components which are provided by Next.UI itself, you can override their styles as well by adding your own Tailwind CSS related styles. So you can add your own Tailwind CSS styles over here, as well as use the properties provided by Next.UI for their specific components. For example, it says disable ripple over here. So this is a feature provided by Next.UI, but the styles you're placing here are Tailwind CSS related styles, which are overriding the styles that Next.UI has added to their button. And if you go down and press the button, we get the particular style and the effect that's mentioned over here. Now, apart from this, one important thing that I really enjoy about this library is I love how the components have been styled. So basically, if I, let's say, click on accordion and I go down here and let's say I click on the accordion, then you see we get this beautiful effect over here. So if I zoom in and I click on the accordion, we get this little dim effect when it opens up and it goes back up. So each of the components in this library, they are styled very aesthetically. It seems very pleasant to watch. For example, if I, let's say, go to the button and then I go down here and I press the button, you see we get this beautiful ripple effect. It looks really amazing, and this is for the disabled styles, and the other buttons also have this beautiful ripple effect styles, which you can enable and disable very easily. And if I go down to the card, you can see over here for the cards as well, if I scroll more down, you can see how beautiful this looks. If I go down, you can see this beautiful blurry effect on the card, which can easily be added by just adding this property that's provided by Next.UI. So they provide a bunch of props like these, which look very pleasant to look at, and you can add it easily, which makes your components look so much aesthetic, and they're perfectly built for React. So here you can combine the card with the button that I just showed you, and if I click on follow, you can see we get this ripple effect along with the very pleasant style of the card that's provided by Next.UI. So if I had to do a comparison, let's say I go to accordion and then I go to another Tailwind CSS component library called Daisy UI, and let's say I go to the component section over here and then I click on accordion and I try to open or close this accordion, you see this looks fine, but it looks nothing compared to how the accordion looks over here. Like you can see a subtle effect which looks amazing. And if I go to some other component, let's say I go to the card, then the card also, it looks fine, but as compared to Next.UI, it looks pretty average, because Next.UI has literally overpowered how a card can look like, and you can just add simple props which can make your card look so much better. Just look at this, how amazing this looks. You can add is blurred, which makes everything blurred behind the scenes. So this card is so much better than how these cards look like. This looks a bit dull compared to how these look like. So it's pretty amazing how Next.UI have styled their components, because they have added some subtle effects which makes your components look really aesthetic to the eye. And the best thing is all of these are integrated with accessibility. So people with disabilities will have no problem navigating through the components. So if I check a few more components, the circular progress bar, yeah, you can see the multiple colors we can add over here, the different types of progress bar you can have which increases with value. You can also add value formatting, such as for kilometers, format options. They've provided a lot of different things. So you can see there are so many components here to go by. You pretty much do not have to create any component on your own. At least 95% of it is provided by Next.UI over here, and they also seem so aesthetic and cool to look at. So yeah, I must say Next.UI 2.0, along with its addition of removing JavaScript runtime and getting it built on top of Tailwind CSS, along with its cool looking UI and the different functionalities it provides, such as theming, overriding styles, layouts, colors, accessibility, all of this combined makes it a really good component library to use at this moment. Also because this latest version is really compatible with the Next.js 13.4 app directory as well, because since it doesn't use CSS and JS like the Next 1.0, so now it doesn't have to worry about the performance overhead if we were to integrate this with a server component. So the performance of Next.UI 2.0 is also much better compared to 1.0. So yeah, this is definitely a library you should check out, and if you're starting with building a project, you can most certainly look into this UI library. So yeah, that's all for this video. If you found it insightful, do give it a like and subscribe for more.